the core fear that I know everybody, at least at some stage, will come to terms with. In one of my communities, we deal with this a lot, and it is the gradual fear of non-existence. And the fear of non-existence manifests always as, I don't fear death, but I fear my dog dying. I don't fear death, but I fear my kids not being provided for. I don't fear death, but I feared being tortured. And it'll be like, there'll be this confidence that they don't fear death, and then there'll be some other thing that they do fear that is somehow a noble thing to fear. And we gaslight this fear of non-existence. So fear of death, I mean, death is so subjective. We have to just forget about the fear of death and not see that as a conquest. The real conquest is the fear of non-existence. Now, the fear of non-existence is exactly what is manifesting in your preliminary fears. The preliminary fears you have, I fear being tortured, I fear losing my dog, I fear losing blah, 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 I fear this, I fear that. Fear that is not an immediate threat. The fact that you're not having a gun pointed to your head, the fact you're not in the middle of an earthquake, the fact that you're not in the middle of something immediately threatening the integrity of the body. Any other fear is always a psychological existential fear that is always the same fear. It's not a different fear. Oh no, my fear of non-existence, I'm fine with that. It's just I just don't want to run out of pickles in my pickle jar. It's like these random other fears that we seem to have. They're not really the thing you fear. Your fear is a manifestation of an identity that is so heavily connected to your sense of self that in the loss of that thing, or that object, or that thought, or that feeling, or that emotion, you would feel like you had lost yourself. And you don't want to lose yourself, because to lose yourself is the experience of non-existence, which is the experience of fear. So in fact, your fears that seem to be projecting out into the future, that you don't seem to be happening now, is in fact the experience of non-existence. Fear is the experience of non-existence. So when you're sitting there on your chair, perfectly fine, comfortable, nothing threatening you, but having anxiety about the date tomorrow, or having anxiety about fearing your relationship coming to an end, it's the same fear of non-existence. You're a part of your identity that you have massively identified and believed you are that subtly, is under threat. And to lose a part of yourself is to die, is to lose something inherent to you. And to lose something inherent to you, well, the only thing you could lose that would be inherent to you is not really an object. It would be your sense of existence itself. It would be your existence. Now, we do exist. We are real. The thing is that we're not a limited existence. We don't have an existence that is inside the head. We're not some type of internal consciousness. We are pure existence itself. The fact there is, just process this for a moment, there's the objects we experience, and we say, yes, this object exists, it's right here. But the object doesn't have its own existence. Existence is borrowed from the fact of existence. And we have to get used to this fact of existence. This exists, and that is a fact. But the object doesn't have that existence. Existence has the object. And the way that when we say, oh yes, this does exist, it's right here, what we are referring to is not the object that has the existence, it's existence that has the existence. In the same way that if we look at a wave in the ocean, the wave isn't really there. We say, yes, does that wave exist to someone? The guy says, yeah, of course it exists. I can see it. It's right there. Oh, now it's gone again. Oh, no, there's another wave. Yeah, that wave exists. Oh, no, it's gone again. Something that starts and ends, finishes, and da-da-da-da-da. It doesn't exist. Not only that, but a wave obviously doesn't exist. When we're looking at the wave, we are looking at the water. The word wave is pointing to a convenient location in experience, namely the part of the water that is moving in this direction, moving there, now it's closer. Instead of just saying, hey, look at the propulsion of the water that is about 5 meters out, moving closer and closer, now it's 4, 3, 2, 1. You see, no one does that. We just say there's the wave. It's the part of the water that moves, right, in that particular shape. It's not really the wave that exists. It is the water. In the same way, when we look at objects, it's not really objects that exist, it's existence. Existence doesn't have a name or a form. It is empty of name and form, which is why all name and form is contained within it. So the point that I'm stressing here is that when we fear, when we have any fear, it's the fear that the fact that we exist, now we exist, we have the same existence as everything else. What we are, when we see an object and we say the object is definitely there, it exists, what we're saying is existence is definitely there, it exists. And the existence takes the shape of an object. Likewise, when we say, I am definitely here, I exist, I am having an experience, I, what is the I that we keep referring to that exists? That I is the source of existence. It doesn't itself have a form. It doesn't itself have a color, a shape, a size. It is the pure experience of ourself. Now, when we say, I am happy, I am sad, I am this, I am that, I'm walking down the street, we're not really walking down the street happy or sad. We are that which is aware of the walking, the sadness, the happiness, the whatever is happening in our experience. And that self is the actual self. That's what we are. This is why when we hear Ramana Maharshi, we hear Nisargadatta, we hear everybody else talking about the I am. What they're referring to is the source of existence, which is that which seems to give everything else their relative existence. We are that. That is the source of what we are. When we refer to I, we're not referring to something else. We are referring to the absolute I. If we take Rupert's example of John Smith and King Lear. John Smith is the actor that plays the role of King Lear. He goes into the play, comes out of the play, forgets that he's John Smith, so he thinks he's King Lear. Now, if King Lear was to go to the source of himself, he would go to the same source as John Smith. Likewise, if you were to go to the source of yourself, just the knowing of yourself, whatever you are, unqualified by any objective experience, thought, or concept, you would go to the true I. That is the absolute I. There's no other I. It's not itself an object. It is the experience of all things. So that one, we have this belief. We might not realize it, but this is the crux of this video. If you've watched this far, listen up. This is the whole point of why I'm making this video. We somehow believe we can lose that sense of I. We somehow believe if we were to die, we would lose that sense of I. If something was to happen to our children, we would lose this sense of I. If something was to happen to our pets or something was to happen to us or anything, we think we would somehow lose a part of that sense of self that we know ourselves to be. So when we are going through a meditative process, an awakening process, when we're getting close to transcending our limited identity, we will naturally have the fear, two fears, either the fear of dying, the fear of disappearing, or the fear of going insane. This is what people are experiencing, and I can guarantee if you haven't experienced it now, you may experience it in the future. Don't be scared. I've been through it. People in my community have been through it. I'm guiding people through it every single day. It's not to be afraid of. It is a natural part of this process because the individual identity wants to stick with what it knows and it doesn't want to lose its sense of self. But the individual identity doesn't get its sense of self from an individual body and mind. So if the individual identity was to disappear, we would never ever lose our sense of self. If you were to go into a dream, you've probably experiencing God knows what in God knows how many dreams throughout your life. You've never ever experienced a different sense of self. You could have been a different gender, a different race, a different bloody animal. I've experienced all of those. I've never lost my sense of self. I had a lucid dream once as a gorilla, like King Kong-sized gorilla, just like trailing, jumping massively across like a jungle. I was not a human being, and I certainly wasn't in the body of Saja. So, and I knew, and it was a self-aware dream. I still had my sense of self. I didn't know what I was when I woke up. I wasn't going, oh, I'm now a gorilla and I used to be Saja. That wasn't my experience. My experience is all I know is I'm trailing through a jungle. And I didn't have the concept jungle that was appropriated when I woke up. I was just raw experiencing. The fear is that we would somehow lose our sense of self. We think our sense of self, there's so many people in the community, you need to lose your sense of self because the sense of self is illusory. Absolutely not. The only people who said that are someone who's read a couple of Ramana Maharshi books and has no idea what they're talking about. There is only a sense of self. And that sense of self, the one you know as yourself right now, I can absolutely guarantee you, it's the same sense of self I am experiencing right now. When I refer to myself, I'm actually referring to yourself, that there's the same self. There's only one self. So there's not the no self, this self, that self, the higher self. There's only one self. The self you were when you were 10 years old is the same self you are now. If you were to die and be born into a different gender's body tomorrow, you would be the same sense of self. You could have different thoughts, different feelings, different sensations. You could be an alien in another dimension, experiencing 10 eyes, 3 ears, and a completely different other sense faculty, and you would still have the same sense of self. You cannot lose that sense of self. That sense of self never dies. Think about it. Arguably, you've probably had another life before this. Do you experience a loss of your sense of self? Did you ever think, oh no, I was something else and now I'm this self. I wish I could just go back to the other self that I had. It's the same sense of self. You'll never, ever lose that. That's the one thing to be convicted in. This is one of the most essential pathways to overcoming the fear of non-existence. Because to know this, you may not see this as related right now. You may think, oh, what has this got to do with uncovering fear? I don't fear losing my sense of self. I fear losing my dog, or I fear losing something else. I'm being facetious. You see what I mean, though, right? These fears are so connected to losing your sense of self. And the same with insanity. That's why the other fear is... So I spoke to someone and they said, okay, I get it now. I won't lose, I won't die. I get it. I continue with my meditations. I'm not going to die. But the thing is, I'm worried I'm going to go insane. The same thing. Going insane is what? You think you'll lose, going insane. When we think that, we think we'll think we won't die, but we will lose our sense of self somehow. That is what people are worried about. Trust me, I've gone insane. I never lost my sense of self. I was still there. I just was doing insane things. You see? You will never lose your sense of self. You can never lose yourself. This is something to contemplate deeply. Go to this experience of yourself. Stop associating the sense of self to some limited form or identity. It's not that. Your sense of self is always transcendent of experience. So, if there's anything to take away from this video, it is to be convicted that you cannot lose yourself. That which you are will always be present. There is no losing your sense of self. There is no going insane because I meditated for too long. You will never die from this process. You can never die. In fact, you will die from this process, but you will die as an individual. You won't actually die with your physical body and mind. Yes, eventually your physical body and mind will die, but not because of a result of your spiritual conquest, just as a result of your understanding. And that will never actually kill the body. And then when you do finally leave the body, you're not really leaving yourself. You'll realize in that moment that you weren't losing yourself. I have a free community. The link is in the description. I do meditations every single week and guidance on these matters. If there's something you're interested in, I would love to see you there. Have a beautiful day, guys. Take care. Bye.